Welcome back to another reading of The Spiritual Combat in a treatise on peace of soul by Dom Lorenzo Scupoli. We left off on Chapter 3, having read the first two chapters, which talked about mainly concerning distrust of self, which was in the last chapter we finished, Chapter 2, and the first chapter, which had preliminary words on perfection. In what does Christian perfection consist? We must fight in order to attain it, and the four things necessary for this combat. I now pick up where we left off on Chapter 3, and will continue in the newfound tradition of reading 2 chapters in a session. This way it is not too short, nor too much. Without further ado, Chapter 3, Confidence in God. Although distrust of self is absolutely necessary in the spiritual combat, nevertheless, if this is all we have to rely on, we will soon be routed, plundered, and subdued by the enemy. To it, therefore, we must join firm confidence in God, the author of all good, from whom alone the victory must be expected. Since it is certain that, in ourselves, we are nothing, and that dangerous misfortunes continually threaten us, reason itself suggests distrust of our own strength. But if we are fully convinced of our weakness, we shall gain, through the assistance of God, very great victories over our enemies. There is nothing of greater efficacy in obtaining the assistance of heaven than placing complete confidence in God. We have 4 means of acquiring this excellent virtue. First, to ask it with great humility. Second, to contemplate with an ardent faith the immense power and infinite wisdom of the Supreme Being. To him nothing is difficult. His goodness is unlimited. His love for those who serve him is always ready to supply them with the necessities for their spiritual life, and for gaining a complete victory over themselves. All that he demands is that they turn to him with complete confidence. Can anything be more reasonable? The amiable shepherd, for 33 years or more, sought after the lost sheep through thorn-roughened ways, with so much pain that it cost him the last drop of his sacred blood. When this devoted shepherd sees his strayed sheep finally returning to him, with the desire of being guided in the future by him alone, and with a sincere, though perhaps weak intention of obeying him, is it possible that he would not look upon it with pity, listen to its cries, and bear it upon his shoulders to the fold? Doubtless, he is greatly pleased to see it united again to the flock, and invites the angels to rejoice with him on the occasion. For if he searches so diligently after the drachma in the gospel, which is a figure of the sinner, if he leaves nothing untouched in order to find it, can he reject those who, like sheep longing to see their shepherd, return to the fold? Can it be imagined that the spouse of our souls, who diligently seeks to take possession of our hearts, whose greatest delight is to communicate himself to us, and heap continual blessings on us, can it be imagined that he, finding the door open, and hearing us beg to be honored by his presence, will do anything but grant our request? Third, another means of acquiring this salutary confidence is frequently to recall what we are assured of in the Holy Scriptures, the witnesses of truth in 1,000 different places, that no one who puts his trust in God will be defeated. Fourth, the final means of acquiring both distrust of self and confidence in God is that before attempting to perform any good action, or to encounter some failing, we should look at our own weakness on the one hand, and on the other, contemplate the infinite power, wisdom, and goodness of God. Balancing what we fear from ourselves with what we hope from God, we shall courageously undergo the greatest difficulties and severest trials. Joining these weapons to prayer, as we shall see later, we shall be able to execute the greatest plans and gain decisive victories. But if we neglect this method, though we may flatter ourselves that we are actuated by a principle of confidence in God, we will usually be deceived. Presumption is so natural to man that, without notice, it insinuates itself into the confidence he imagines he has in God, and the distrust he fancies he has of himself. Consequently, in order to destroy all presumption, and to sanctify every action with the two virtues opposite to this vice, the consideration of one's own weakness must precede that of the divine power. Both of these must precede all undertakings. Chapter 4. How to discover whether we distrust ourselves and place our confidence in God. The presumptuous man is convinced that he has acquired a distrust of himself and confidence in God, but his mistake is never more apparent than when some fault is committed. For if he yields to anger and despairs of advancing in the way of virtue, it is evident that he placed his confidence in himself, and not in God. The greater the anxiety and despondence, the greater is the certainty of his guilt. The man who has a deep distrust of himself and places great confidence in God is not at all surprised if he commits a fault. He does not abandon himself to confused despair. He correctly attributes what has happened to his own weakness and lack of confidence in God. Thus, he learns to distrust himself more, and he places all his hopes in the assistance of the Almighty. He detests beyond all things the sin into which he has fallen. He condemns the passion or criminal habit that occasioned his fall. He conceives a deep sorrow for his offense against God. But his sorrow, accompanied by peace of mind, does not interrupt the method he has laid down, nor does it prevent the pursuit of his enemies to their final destruction. I sincerely wish that what has been proposed here would be attentively considered by many who think they are very devout. Yet, from the moment they commit a fault, they will not be pacified, but hurry away to their director, more to rid themselves of the distress arising from self-love than from any other motive. Their principal care should be to wash away the guilt of sin in the sacrament of penance, and to fortify themselves with the Eucharist against a relapse.